I'm in Kandy, the gateway to Sri Lanka's famous tea fields.
I would love some tea, please. This is one of my favourite rituals, and I'm not alone. Tea is the second most consumed drink in the world, right after water.
And on the boxes of the big tea brands, there's a promise that their product has been ethically and sustainably produced wherever it's grown. But is it true for tea grown here in Sri Lanka?
For the last few weeks, we've had people going out to tea fields across the region. Estates like these are so remote that no one comes here unless they have a reason to, and that's why it remains hidden.
அவங்க விரும்புறாமல்ல ஆடிட் விரும்புவாங்களா இருக்கும். சில வேளை நாங்க உண்மைகளை சொல்லி போடலாம்.
We're heading deep into the tea fields to investigate if the labels live up to their promises. It's 10 a.m. in Colombo, and I'm here to see where the price of tea is set in the global market.
Hi, Anil.
Hi. Welcome.
Well, thank
to have you here.
Lovely to be here.
Lady, you're going to be seeing some very fine Ceylon teas soon. So let's do some tasting.
That sounds fantastic.
Anil Cook is one of Sri Lanka's most experienced tea brokers.
What we do as brokers is we look at the tea and decide what it's going to probably sell at the following week's auction.
These leaves have been sent by plantations from across Sri Lanka's growing regions.
So the floral taste.
That is strong.
It takes a discerning palate to rate these leaves.
So you could tell immediately what the value of the tea is just based on taking a quick slurp.
Well, telling the value of a tea is about faith and understanding the market as well, right? We ship tea to about 150 countries around the world.
Sri Lanka was once the world's biggest black tea exporter, but now it's at a crossroads. It's being undercut by cheaper offerings from China, Kenya and India, and some are questioning whether it can survive.
We are a high-cost, high-value producer, but the margin is wafer thin. So a small movement of price either way would mean that often the producer is not selling their teas at the price that they produced it. And this is the dance with the devil that happens every week. It is much more than the 100 tea bags we have in a box on the shelf that is going roughly at the price of a cup of coffee.
The auction gets underway and representatives from all the big tea brands are here online. Each ping signals a sale. Many brands use third-party auditors to certify that minimum standards are met. Approved estates are placed on a list where they can be purchased from at any time.
Certification is when an independent observer, trusted by the consumer, the brand, and the producer, offers an opinion based on a study and scrutiny and inspection.
And what are some of the major certification schemes at the moment?
The one that is most followed is the Rainforest Alliance, and to a lesser extent, we have a fair trade.
What's the purpose of certification?
I believe that certification is being adopted by brands and in turn the producers to communicate a message to a prospective consumer that certain standards have been made. So this is an effective way of communicating a complex message to a wide body of people.
Attention please. Udarathamani Express train.
I want to meet the workers who are supposed to be covered by these certification schemes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're travelling past large plantations. They operate on government-owned land.
So these estates are all quite remotely located. They're often several kilometres out of town, and as you can see, the roads are extremely bumpy. It makes them hard to navigate, and it just means that the people working in these estates are very isolated.
For the safety of the workers we're meeting, we won't be revealing the names of the estates. We're about to head into an estate that's on the supplier lists of Lipton and Twinings.
It also has Rainforest Alliance and Fair Trade certification. Now that means that it has certain standards that it needs to live up to. I'm going inside to find out what it's really like.
This is just one section of a vast estate. The first worker we meet is Darshini.
How long have you been a tea picker here?
இங்கே வந்து 19 வருஷமாக படிக்கிறேம்மா அங்கே நம்ம வீட்டில் 13 வயசுலேருந்து
What's the target that you need to reach today?
18 எடுக்கணுங்கம்மா 6 கிலோ போட்டிருக்கீங்கம்மா இன்னும் 12 கிலோ எடுக்கீங்க
So you have to get that target?
ஆமாம்மா கூட 15 கிலோ அப்படி எடுத்தோம்னா அரை பேருன்னு போடுவாங்கம்மா
These are tough targets to meet, and Darshini's struggling. This is not an easy place to work.
As you can see, these are really difficult fields to navigate. The bushes are quite overgrown, there's leeches everywhere, there's snakes. It's not easy conditions at all.
Further up the field, we meet one of Darshini's friends, Maheswari.
Hi, Maheswari.
Certification is supposed to guarantee toilets and drinking water, but Maheswari tells me they have access to neither in this field.
ஃபீல்டில் இருக்க நேரம் அந்த வசதி இல்லை ஃபீல்டுக்கான டாய்லெட் இல்லை
And what about water? Do you get access to drinking water?
வீட்டில் இருந்தே கொண்டுட்டு வந்துடுவோம் மிஸ் பெரிய பொட்டலுங்களில் குடிக்கிறதுக்கு எடுத்துகிட்டு வந்துடுவோம்
She tells us the supervisors prevent auditors from Rainforest Alliance and Fair Trade from speaking to them about the conditions.
வருவாங்க பெருசாக எங்களோட கான்டாக்ட் விட மாட்டாங்க அவங்க விரும்புகிறாமல்ல ஆடிட் விரும்புவாங்களா இருக்கும் சில வேளை நாங்கள் உண்மைகளை சொல்லி போடலாம்
What would you tell them if you could speak to them?
சொல்லுவோம் எங்களோட கஷ்டத்தை கொஞ்சம் லேடிஸ் தானே நாங்களும் பில்லு பிடுங்கணும் நிறைய ஒடிச்சுக்கணும் தூரத்தில் அந்த இடத்துல நிறுவையாக இருந்தால் நாங்கள் கொழுந்து எடுத்துகிட்டு அங்கேருந்து இங்கே அங்கேருந்து தூக்கிட்டு வர நேரம் முதுகு வலிக்கும் தலை வலிக்கும்
After a long day in the field, the workers start the journey back to base. The final weigh-in is at 4 p.m. and they rush to make it.
So as you can see behind me, the workers have just finished for the day and they're going to take all of this tea that they've been picking down to be weighed and to find out if they've made the minimum wage. And it is such a long trek. They've come from those mountains just beyond there, all the way around and down, and they've still got a few more kilometres to go. And that's with several kilos of tea on their back.
Today, Darshini's bag is under the 18-kilo target. But with our cameras rolling, the supervisors cut her some slack.
So did you meet the target today? How do you feel?
சந்தோஷமா இருக்கு.
On days when Darshini picks enough, she's paid the minimum wage guaranteed under certification. But the reality is, like many workers, she can't survive on that and is caught in a cycle of pay advances, meaning she's constantly in debt.
கடனுக்கு சல்லி பத்தாதுங்க, பிள்ளைங்களுக்கு வாங்கி போடையும் பத்தாதுங்க, ஒரு நேரம் சாப்பிடுங்க, 2 நேரம் பட்டினியாட்டாங்க இருக்குங்க. இப்போ வந்த எல்லா நேரம் கவலையாக இருக்கும். நேற்று காலையில் இதுங்க ஸ்கூலுக்கு சும்மாவே போயிட்டாங்க. இப்போ நானும் சும்மாவே மலைக்கு போயிட்டோங்க. பெருசாக கொண்டு போ அது வாங்கினாலும் இந்த இப்போ வாங்கின கடனை கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சம் கட்டுவோம். பாடமெல்லாம் படிச்சு இப்போ நடந்துச்சாம்மா? பாடம் நடக்கலை.
Darshini has 3 children that she's raising on just her wage. Most days, they struggle to get by. She wants them to have a different future, away from the tea fields.
படிக்க வச்சு அதுங்களை ஒரு நல்ல தொழில் கொண்டு போகணும், நம்மளும் மனுஷமே கஷ்டம் இல்லாமல் நல்லா இருக்கணும் அப்படின்னு தாங்கம்மா யோசிப்பேன். இப்போ அதுங்க படித்து ஒரு வேலைங்களுக்கு போனால் நமக்கு ஏதோ கொஞ்சம் இதாக இருக்குங்க. அதனால அதுங்க அப்படியெல்லாம் இருக்கக்கூடாது, நம்மமே மலையில் சீரழியக்கூடாது.
The tea workers in the fields today are the descendants of South Indians, brought here by the British in the 1800s as indentured labourers. For more than 100 years, a Catholic order of nuns has been living alongside them.
First time the tea pluckers came, this is the way the tea leaves were carried to the factory.
Sister Ajantha tells me while there have been improvements, many tea workers, known as Malayaga Tamils, are still living in extreme poverty.
Promises were given, when you come here you will have this better future. With that confidence they came here.
She says for hundreds of years they've been treated as second-class citizens and were denied full citizenship rights until 2003. Even now, they're seen as outsiders.
Nobody to stand for their rights, and so many times they protest and they go for strike and all to increase their salary, but nobody is concerned.
The tea that we buy overseas has all these labels that says they're ethical and sustainably made. Do you think that that's true?
No, that is not the truth, because outside they show. Now when you come and see the reality, you understand what is happening. But outside when you're there, you will not know what they are going through. Because just they saw some pictures about them that they are having the better life and what is there. Because they want to show themselves they are doing the better job. But actually we are dealing with the people, we know the hard time given to them.
We're heading into another estate that's on the supply list for Tetley, Dilmah, Lipton, Twinings and Yorkshire tea. The tea pluckers don't just work on these estates, they live here in supplied dwellings, known as line houses. Under certification standards, they have to be provided with safe, clean and decent homes.
Hello, how are you? It's nice to meet you. Is this your house?
We meet Vimala Devi. She works as a tea plucker in the estates and lives in this house with 7 other family members.
You all sleep in here?
Okay.
She tells me the roof is damaged and the house floods.
It's all broken up there. Has anyone come to check it?
இந்த வீட்டிலே பிறந்தோம் பிள்ளைகள் எல்லாமே எங்களோட பாபா அவங்க எல்லாமே இங்கேயே தான் பிறந்தோம் குடிக்கிற தண்ணி கொஞ்சம் இந்த வருது கொஞ்சம் குடிக்க வெயில் காலம் வந்துட்டா தண்ணி வர டாய்லெட்லாம் இல்லை.
And what's the longest that you've gone without having access to drinking water?
ஜனவரி மாதமெல்லாம் ஒரு மாதம் இல்லை 3 மாதமும் தண்ணி இல்லாமல் இருந்திருக்கோம்.
This estate shares responsibility for these houses with the government. But Vimala Devi tells us no one is checking here.
And have you ever had a visit from an auditor from these certification programs?
இல்லை இன்ன வரைக்கும் வந்து பார்த்தில்ல. முதல் முறையாக நீங்கள் தான் வந்து பார்த்துருக்கீங்க.
Do you know that you are entitled to have access to drinking water and to toilets?
None of the workers we spoke to were aware of the certification standards, and the issues we're uncovering aren't isolated. We've spoken to dozens of people with extensive expertise here who say that what we're finding is widespread.
The name Line Room is where the British put their horses. And then when the government took over, these buildings were there already.
Michael Joachim runs a local NGO that's been working with tea pluckers for nearly 40 years. He says when audits are conducted, they're mostly pre-arranged.
Do you think anyone has audited these estates properly?
No, I don't think so. There is no real checking from the workers to see whether ethical standards are being followed. And the workers doesn't know that the trees are being sold on the basis that the certification standards are prevailing here. So it's in a way, I would say, it's cheating. This is marketing strategy where you convince the buyer that ethical standards are being followed. But in truth, the ethical standards are not being followed here. There is a weakness in the whole mechanism.
Problems at this estate go beyond housing. Kids have to go to school until they're 16. It's also a requirement of Rainforest Alliance certification. But poverty is driving them into work. We find a child labourer in a privately owned vegetable garden on the estate. This girl is 12 years old. She tells me she dropped out of school a year ago and no one noticed.
வேலைக்கு வந்து வீட்டில் கஷ்டம்னால அப்படியே போயிட்டேன். ஸ்கூலுக்கு வீட்டில் சும்மா தானே இருக்கனால அப்படியே வேலைக்கு வந்தால் 500 ரூபா சம்பளம் கொடுப்பாங்க. அதில் வீட்டுக்கு சாமான் வாங்கிடுவோம். எனக்கு ஸ்கூலுக்கு போக ரொம்ப விருப்பம். ஆனால் யாராச்சும் விளாண்டா எனக்கு விளாட இயலாது. வேலைக்கு போய்ட்டு 5 மணிக்கு வரவே வந்துட்டு மித்த நேரம் வீட்டில் சாப்பாடு இருக்காது. வேலை இல்லாட்டி பட்னியாக தான் இருப்போம். தேத்தனி ஒன்று குடிச்சிக்கிட்டு ஒரு நேரம் அழுகுவோம் நாங்கள். சாப்பாடுக்கு ஒன்றும் இல்லை பண்ணி.
I'm back in Colombo to find out why these certification standards aren't working. Here in Sri Lanka, the most prominent certifier in the tea industry is Rainforest Alliance.
Hi, Jehan.
Hi, Naomi. Welcome.
Thank
nice seeing you.
Nice to meet you.
Jehan Kanagaratna is the country representative.
We've just come from several days on various Rainforest Alliance certified estates, and what we've seen has really shocked us. So no proper access to drinking water and toilets at work, but also at home. And there was also a case of children that were working in private gardens on the estates rather than going to school. These are all breaches of those certification standards. Is that a failure of your certification process?
Well, definitely the last one you told me, that's shocking to me that there is school-age children working in the estate itself.
So the children had been stopping school at around 12 or 13 and they'd been working in private gardens on the estate in full view for several years.
Oh, that shouldn't happen. That definitely shouldn't happen.
Who do you think is responsible for this situation where there are Rainforest Alliance certified estates where the conditions aren't meeting the marks required?
My personal opinion is it's a responsibility of every person drinking a cup of tea. It is their responsibility as well.
But can I just say to that, if the consumer can't trust the certification stamp on the products they're buying, then where does the responsibility lie? Because they're doing as much as they can as a consumer to make a choice that you would think would be ethical, right?
It's a difficult question for me to answer, but certainly I would say it's a struggle for us also here in Sri Lanka to try and ensure all the standards are met, right? We are doing our best out there, and the fact is, with our audits, if some of these things, as you say, don't get caught, then there's something wrong with that system.
We asked the brands in this story what checks they undertake on the estates named in their supplier lists. Lipton, Twinings, Tetley, Dilmah and Yorkshire Tea stated that conditions are routinely monitored. We alerted the brands to the issues we found, but not the specific locations, in case the workers faced repercussions for speaking out. Brands said they will investigate the issues raised. Rashan Rajadurai is the spokesperson for the Planters Association of Ceylon, the powerful body representing the major tea estates.
You have to understand that we care for 1 million people in a vast, almost 70,000 hectare span. There may be cases. I am not saying that 100%, we don't know. So it's up to the people concerned, management, the workers, unions to speak to their management. Can you show me any document to say that we have to provide housing? No.
Under the Rainforest Alliance certification standards, you are supposed to provide proper access to housing.
So we have taken this matter up with Rainforest Alliance. Certifications can require, but then they have to look at the law of the land. No? How can they ask something that we are not mandated to provide? They can ask the sun and the moon. That's what I said.
Can I ask a few questions just relating to your estates? We visited one of them which falls under your company, and we found that there were children that were under the age of 16 who weren't attending school and were working in the tea estates' private gardens.
Tea estates?
Private
vegetable gardens?
Yes.
Not the tea fields?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
But they are children up to the age of 16 do need to be attending school. It is a breach of those standards, but also Sri Lankan laws. What monitoring is done to ensure that the children on your estates are attending school?
I think it's a very unfair how shall I say, question. You're asking me if you say the children are working in the tea fields, then we have breached the law in employing them. The supervisor has breached the law. Why is the estate management held accountable? Because the parents should be held accountable because we are not forcing the children to come and work. Why should the certification scheme include that? Because in your workplace, your superior, you can't go and ask your superior about your children's education.
Do you think that the brands have a degree of responsibility in ensuring
the brands are only demanding an arm and a leg and paying us $4 at the auctions. The brands can insist that their local agents pay us more. They want everything, and we have to sort of, from the meager earnings, which now currently the earnings are equal to the cost. So where is this extra money coming? Even if you want to do, it's very altruistic, and do something for the workers, where is this money coming from?
The tea industry is rapidly becoming unsustainable in Sri Lanka as it competes with cheaper providers who can automate their workforces and produce more tea more cheaply.
Hi, Saranga.
Hi, Naomi. Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Let's get you suited up so that we can do
Amazing.
around in the production facility.
Sounds great.
Come on in.
Saranga Hereth saw the writing on the wall way back in 2010.
We saw the way tea was being traded down and commoditized, and the huge price pressure in the markets, and then how it was not, filtering down. And at times we were helpless. We didn't know what to, how to answer. Their living conditions, their houses, the living wage issue was a massive issue.
His company diversified into more expensive botanical teas, buying direct from small farms and charging more for their product.
Brands have to step up the game, have direct relationships with producers, farms, and make sure that the living conditions, the wages, the fair prices are all improving, because you can't rely behind certifications and say, I've got fair trade, I've got rainforest. That's completely unethical from my perspective.
He believes the only way conditions will improve for workers is if brands raise their prices and consumers accept it.
I think the elephant in the room in all these discussions is price. And if the price is too cheap in the marketplace, it's up to the brands to reposition, because the consumers, for example, tea, are not demanding cheap teas. It's completely run down. It's traded down by the brands, not by the consumers, not by the trade. Now it's got into a vicious cycle. So how do you move out of the vicious cycle? It's up to the brands to make that first move.
It's the end of another long day in the fields for Darshini. Dinner tonight is a weak cup of tea.
நாங்கள் கொடுத்தது நாங்கள் எடுக்கிற கொண்டு தான் எங்களுக்கு நல்ல தொழிலைங்க அந்த மாதிரி தொழில் தாங்க எங்களுக்கு கொடுக்குறாங்க. அதில் தாங்க இப்போ நாங்கள் தேத்தனி குடிக்கிறோம். நாங்கள் எடுத்த கொண்டு தேத்தனி நாங்கள் எடுத்து குடித்ததில்லை. இந்த மாதிரி தாங்க எங்களுக்கு கொடுத்து நாங்கள் குடிக்கிறோம். ஏன்டா நம்ம இப்படி இந்த நிலமையில இருக்கோம் அப்படின்னு தாங்க தோணும். ஏன்டா நமக்கு இந்த நிலமை அப்படின்னு கண்டாவே யோசிப்போம்.